Welcome to Universal Man, where we turn your flight into fight so you can master yourself, conquer your goals, and live on the front line of your life. My name is Mark Weppett, and I am here to help you sharpen your masculine edge so that you can cut through the resistance holding you back from becoming a man that you admire. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about rituals for confidence, self-respect, and success. Basically, what I've found is that many people are unconsciously doing things, both internally and externally, regularly, that's communicating a bad message not only to themselves, but other people. Basically, they're programming themselves to be insecure and not succeed. And that's a big deal, right? So what I want to do in this video is break down some negative rituals that people often unconsciously engage in, and then show you how to flip them around, show you how to engage instead empowering rituals that can consistently program you for better and better results. Okay, so in the last video, I was talking to you guys about, slight edge versus deep work and, routines and all that kind of stuff. So I thought in this video, I would kind of start getting into, what routines should you be considering? What are the things that would help you out? And in order to really look at this, we got to kind of understand the baseline of personal change. And I think that really comes down to valuing yourself enough so that you will sacrifice for your own benefit. That's really what it comes down to. If you know how to consistently value yourself properly, then you will consistently sacrifice to honor that value. And so often why people can't change is because they don't value themselves enough. It's not internalized enough. They don't have enough self-respect and self-dignity to really take care of themselves in the way that's going to lead them to the best life that they can get. And I believe a big part of this is because people are consistently programming themselves in a way that fosters this negative self-image and self-disrespect. And if you don't take care of this kind of stuff, then you're basically like, it's like you're feeding your emotional mind crap inputs, and so it's going to give you crap output. So if you're giving it bad commands, then it's going to produce, just feelings of anxiety, lack of confidence, frustration, laziness, apathy, all that kind of stuff. That's what your emotional mind is going to give you if you're just programming it to produce that kind of stuff. But if, you got to realize that you're doing it so that you can make a change. And the big thing to understand is that much of our communication is nonverbal. Even if you don't have a whole ton of negative self-talk, if you're treating yourself, if you're telling a story by the way that you act, that you are not good enough, that you're not worth the effort, that you can't do it, whatever, then that's still absorbed by your unconscious mind and, will then affect the emotional outputs it produces. So first, let's look at inner routines or habits, all right? So obviously, the big one is negative self-talk. If you talk to yourself poorly, if you talk to yourself like a jerk, you tell yourself, oh, you're a piece of crap, or oh, you're not good enough, oh, you always screw this up, or oh, you got this bad thing to handle, or you got all this stress, you can't handle it, like this is really bad, blah, blah, blah. If you're constantly bombarding yourself with that sort of talk, well, don't be surprised if your emotional self sucks. Because if you're constantly beating that part down of you, it's down in you, then it's not going to be able to serve you properly. It's just gonna, it's going to basically give you back what you give it. And often, if you give it negativity, that's all it's going to give you back. And that's not useful, right? So negative self-talk, big deal. And there's a lot of videos out there on that kind of stuff. So, you can check out positive self-talk or neurolinguistic programming or NLP. All that kind of stuff is, useful to understand. Now, another inner kind of routine would be letting yourself be ordered by the path of least resistance. That's the ordering principle in your life. That's how you plan your days. That's how you plan your career. That's how you do all the stuff. It's like, what would be easiest? What would be most comfortable? Okay, that's a bad routine, because basically what you're telling yourself in that scenario is that, I'm not worth effort. I'm only, the only thing that matters to me here is comfort. That comfort is my God. That's the narrative that you're feeding yourself. And so that's what your emotions will line up with. And then the final thing is just allowing constant mental escapism. Instead of being present in your reality and what you're doing, you're constantly drifting off into fantasy worlds. Either actually, in terms of using video games or porn, or just constantly daydreaming about some world where you're a superhero, or, you're this or you're that, anything other than being right here. Basically what you're telling yourself is that this life Here, it's empty. It's worthless. Not worth the effort. It sucks. Whatever. I'd rather be somewhere else. And, instead of actually doing the work to do that, you just taking the shortcut. You're just going there virtually rather than actually embodying that kind of stuff. So now that's kind of inner stuff, right? And this I've seen often leads to more practical rituals of self-disrespect, as it were. So let's look at these practical routines. All right. So one would be poor hygiene. Okay. All right. You don't take care of yourself. You don't, trim yourself up. You don't clean yourself. You don't, do that kind of thing. You stink and, you look like a slob. Okay. That's a message that you're telling yourself, hey, you're not worth it, right? Okay. Another one would be wearing constantly like ill-fitting clothing, or constantly only wearing like t-shirt and sweatpants. Now, I'm not saying that clothing is everything, but if you're constantly sending yourself the message that the only thing that matters to you is comfort, well, again, that's going to be what's internalized, and that's going to strengthen that prison of comfort and keep you from being able to do uncomfortable things. Do you have a messy environment? Is your, apartment or house or whatever just a wreck, just like filled with trash everywhere and clutter and all this kind of stuff? Again, what kind of message do you think this is communicating? Just this message, really, a message of chaos, a message of disarray, a message of, things not being in order. And so that's a big issue. If you're talking about programming yourself, constantly having this messy, dirty environment around you is not programming yourself well. And then you got the two big ones that everyone talks about. It's like if you got a bad diet and you got a lack of exercise. I mean, that's pretty, fundamental self-care. Diet and exercise, those are things that, we all got bodies, and then our bodies have certain needs if they want to function well. And if you're not taking care of it, well, what does that say? What kind of message are you sending to yourself when you're not taking care of your biggest resource, which is your body? That literally is your most powerful resource and important resource in many ways. It's the vehicle for your mind. I guess you can make the argument that, your energy or your attention is more important, but, your body is well up on the list, right? So when you've got those practical things that are not taken care of, then I think what that ultimately leads then into is poor body language. Like if you fail to make good eye contact, you fail to enunciate, you've got bad posture, you awkwardly stare at people, or you just keep your head down, all this kind of stuff. All these things, they tell a story, right? And they're telling a story to your emotional mind. Like this is scientifically proven. Like your stances that you take have an impact on your hormones, okay? Like they've seen that, if you strike like a power pose, then that actually increases your testosterone. Like if you just like are constantly like, yeah, you're just like, and these protective sort of like body language positions, that actually communicates to your subconscious mind that, you're not safe, you're not secure, you're not powerful. And guess what? Your body then responds and it believes that story. So not only is this communicating all this to yourself, it's also broadcasting it to everybody else. Every single, like you're always telling a story about who you are, what you're about, what you're worth, all the time. So you're telling that to yourself, but also everyone else who can observe you. So if you've got bad body language, you dress like a slob, you look like a slob, you smell bad, and like you talk negatively and all that kind of stuff, well, guess what? That's going to make it a lot harder for people to like you. And obviously, these things are more superficial. We haven't talked about moral character or anything like that. And if someone has a lot of character, then they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But they're going to have to work at it. Why would you want to make someone work at trying to like you? Why would you make it harder for someone to like you and to, be on your side and see you as a good guy and see you as someone, who's, an upstanding person on their team? If you're constantly broadcasting bad messages, then you're making it harder for people to, appreciate who you are. And that's really practically unhelpful because people are busy. People only have so much time and so much energy, and they may not be so developed that they can apply that spiritual filter of trying to find that real you when all of your messages are shouting that, hey, you're not worth getting to know or not worth valuing or not worth trusting or whatever it is. And so, this is a big deal. I really think it is. So let's flip it. All right, let's flip it because the solution is learn better rituals, learn better habits, learn better things that change the narrative that you are telling to yourself. And that core narrative that you want to be instilling inside of yourself is that you really matter, that you have inherent worth, and that you work to honor that worth in a radiant fashion, meaning like you recognize it inside of yourself, and then you let that goodness flow out into all of your thoughts, into your actions, into the way you present yourself. And if you do this properly, if you build this bridge from this inner truth into the practical outer material world, well then you've done it. You've made it so that, you've created a story that not only you are in, but other people can see and pick up on as well. So on the inner level, this comes down to talking to yourself with respect. If you talk to yourself in a way that you would never talk to someone else, like, as a real jerk or whatever, well, then you need to clean this up. You need to talk to yourself as if you were someone that you respected. Okay. And doing that will help you start building self-respect. All right. Instead of beating yourself up and judging yourself and making fun of yourself for, having this problem or that problem, give yourself some compassion, some forgiveness. That's one piece of it. But then also you got to know when you got to kick yourself in the pants and be like, hey, stop whining, stop complaining. Let's get going. Let's do it. We got stuff to do here. So your self-talk is huge. Talk to yourself like you're someone you really care about and you really respect. Instead of following like this path of least resistance and letting that order anything, you need to learn how to set intentional goals. You need to learn how to plan your time and your energy based upon the things that you want. Instead of just following, what's going to be most comfortable or what's going to be easiest, do what's going to be best. Let that be your internal ordering principle. Let the pursuit of meaning be your internal ordering principle. Okay? That's a huge one. That's absolutely huge. And then the other one, instead of escaping, make sure you're present. All right? Allow yourself to be where you're at because it's the truth. It's the truth of where you're at, right? Instead of constantly running into escapist things, running into fantasy, playing video games, watching porn, just drifting into, dreamland or whatever, be where you're at. And sometimes where you're at, it's not so great. But it's only by being where you're at that you can actually do something about it, that you can actually change it. And sometimes we need to feel the pain of where we are at to incentivize going somewhere else. And so that takes bravery, but you got to do it. And so you start doing this kind of stuff, guess what? That's going to flow into your outer routines, okay? So, dress yourself and groom all right. You got to at least dress yourself well enough to have congruence. You want to dress yourself in a way that communicates the story of who you are. Not because you have to or because clothes are anything or everything, but because it's authentic. If you are one thing, but then you dress in another way, then there's a disconnect in that story. And that's what we're looking to do, is create an integrated story. So, for me, for the longest time, I would wear clothes that didn't fit me because I would only buy bargain rack stuff, and I've got a strange shaped body, and I need to, I just didn't invest in that way. And ultimately, what I was telling myself, the message I was programming into myself was that I wasn't worth it. I wasn't worth doing the effort to try and find clothes that fit me better, or, that I like even. And so, if you're interested in the whole style aspect, I'm brand new to that kind of thing. Check out Tanner Guzzi from masculinestyle.com. He's got some really interesting stuff, especially for you guys who have liked my archetype videos. He talks about the archetypes in terms of style, and masculine style particularly, and they're really cool. So, check him out, masculine-style.com. Really good stuff there. And then in terms of the grooming, just, groom yourself like you care about yourself. All right. Like, don't be a slob. Make sure you don't smell bad. Make sure, you shower and do all that kind of stuff. All right. Like, that's just baseline self-care, and it's important. Okay. So now on to food and exercise. All right. Feed yourself like someone who gives a crap about their energy. Feed yourself like someone who has stuff that they care about and that they need to get done. And in order to do it, they need energy, and they need the best energy that they can get. And one of the best ways that you can get good energy is through diet, right? And so you don't necessarily need to make it all about like these huge body goals. But, the way that I approach it is like, what's going to give me the best energy to be my best self? I think that's a good way to approach it. So feed yourself from that mindset. And then exercise also from that mindset. Exercise from the place of like, all right, I'm a guy who wants to get shit done, and I need my body to be able to keep up and do that kind of thing. And so, think about that story that you want to tell about yourself. So for me, I want to be able to communicate competence, discipline, power, all that kind of stuff. And I can't do it if I don't have a certain kind of body type. So for me, it requires a certain amount of work. Maybe you don't need all of that, and that's fine. Maybe you just need a body that can, get you from point A to point B without breaking down. Well, that's still going to take some work, but, it's not going to necessarily be that intense. Maybe you're someone who wants to be able to climb mountains or whatever. That's going to be an entirely different set of body goals, but just make sure that it's lined up with the story of who you want to be. And then you get this stuff unlocked, guess what? Flows out into the body language, all right? And you're going to walk differently. You're going to talk differently. You're going to, just all around hold yourself differently, have better eye contact, have a firmer handshake, all that kind of stuff. And what ends up happening is that your overall aura improves. By playing the part of someone who gives a crap about themselves, you'll start feeling like you are worth something, okay? And that's what it comes down to, is you got to act it out. And, sometimes sometimes, it starts with an inner change and then flows out into this outer change. Like, you have this internal breakthrough and you decide it and it all flows out into your habits or whatever. Sometimes it goes the other way. Sometimes it's like, all right, I start changing the way I show up in the world, and then that starts filtering into, it becomes a real thing. That's kind of taking the more fake it till you make it, which means act it out until you internalize it. And I think both paths are valid. And it's going to feel good. Your emotions are going to start working for you. They're going to start giving you confidence. They're going to start giving you motivation and all that kind of stuff. And that's amazing. When you're emotional, if you're used to having your emotional self work against you, once you see it start working for you, it's like, oh my gosh, that's way better. It's way better not having to fight myself on every single little thing, to instead be filled with energy and drive to do these good things. Big change. It's wonderful. And, that goes into the relationship with other people, right? Like if you're telling a different story in all your intangible, nonverbals and that kind of stuff, well, people aren't gonna have to work so hard to like you. In fact, maybe they'll like you instantly, and it can very much improve your personal relationships. So it can bring you more success, especially if your career requires a lot of interpersonal interaction. These things, they matter. They absolutely do. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Hopefully you liked this video, you found it valuable. Please let me know what sort of rituals you need to shift up or you're going to implement in your life in the comments below. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. But until next time, stay sharp.